So last time we talked about, you guys, last time we talked about historical events, right, that shaped the history of the English language, right? So particularly important was the arrival, was the arrival of the three Germanic groups, right? The three Germanic tribes, including the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, right? From somewhere on the European continent, right? They sail across the ocean, land on the British Isles, and they settle along the coast, right? Along the coastal areas in different places, bringing with them their own dialects, right? But because they speak dialects, like you can imagine some people speak Busan dialect, some people speak Gwangju dialect, but they can communicate, right? So they can live together peacefully, cohabited peacefully, and then we have the rise of Old English, right? So that's the point where Old English came into being. And then we have the conversion to Christianity, right, which has to be done again and again and again because people can go back to their own habit of practicing paganism, right? And we have Scandinavian invasion, the Vikings invasion, starting in the 8th century, right, where we have contact with Scandinavian languages, and we have perhaps grammatical forms and also words like they, T-H-E-Y, they, right? The pronoun they and the word are, they are. These two words are completely Scandinavian, not Old English, not Anglo-Saxon. Okay, so we'll talk about that when we talk about words in Old English. And so this is like the map of Anglo-Saxon England, the red area, right? The red area, and the perhaps the dark blue area here. These areas are the areas where Celtic people, right, where Celtic peoples were pushed into different corners because of the Anglo-Saxon people, right? And we have this war that ended in a truce, right, where they established this pact agreement that the Danish people, Scandinavian people could rule one side of the isle, and the British people, the Anglo-Saxon people could rule the other side. So we have the Danelaw area, which is like this. So you can guess that in this blue, light blue area, Danelaw area, you can have a lot of place names that are Scandinavian, right? And then in this dark red area, you have native English, right? Native Anglo-Saxon names like that, for place names at least. And so today we'll go on with orthography. So you learn the development, right? You learn about the development of the English alphabet. Now this is just a review then. So you know that we have adopted the Latin alphabet, or what we call the Roman alphabet, because of Christianity, right? Conversion to Christianity. So we adopted the Latin alphabet. But before that, you know that we Anglo-Saxon people or Germanic peoples, they use what kind of language? Rune, right? They use the runes or runic alphabet, right? And the runic alphabet faded out of use around the 10th century. So they are replaced by the Latin alphabet, as you know. And during the Old English time, we don't use J, the letter J, K, Q, V, and Z. We don't use these, although we use these as numbers, right, as numerals in the Latin system, right? So this is what runes, the Anglo-Saxon runes look like, right? So you have already seen something like this before, so I'll go through this quickly. And this picture, what is interesting about this picture is that it's a cross, it's a stone cross, right? A cross made of stone, right? And this is probably, I think, was created in the 8th century. People agree that perhaps the dating is about the 8th century. And what is interesting is that all around the edges, there are 4 sides, right? You have inscriptions like of runic letters like this, you see. There's several runic letters here, and on this side also, mixed with Latin. You know, Christianity. When people wrote about Christianity or religious prose or poems, they wrote in Latin, right? But what is interesting about this is you have the Old English, right? Old English runic letters, and also Latin words. So what this means is that Anglo-Saxon people adopted Christianity to a certain extent, and they also put in their own language in here. So it tells a story. Actually, it's a poem. You can call it the first poem in the history of English literature. It's a poem that's called The Dream of the Rood. The Dream of the Rood. Let me find a blank paper. Blank paper. So I'll show you. Dream of the Rood. Dream, gum, right? Oh, it's here. So Dream of the Rood. I'll make this bigger. R-O-O-D, rood. Rood means a cross. So meaning that a cross, like the cross on which Christ was crucified, right? The cross had a dream like that. So it's an interesting poem, but if you're interested, we can go over that poem when we talk about Old English texts, okay, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So it tells about the experience of Christ's crucifixion from the perspective of the cross. So typically it's people, right, who saw Christ's crucifixion, right? But in this case, the story is told from the words of the cross. So it's a different way of telling the story. So you can call it the first English poem, right? Anglo-Saxon poem. So that's what's on the cross here, right? And you also have different figures of Christ and other religious figures in the middle, in the center of the cross here. And as you know, there were some special letters, right? Some we got from the runic alphabet. So we have this A and E, right? It looks like A and E written together, right? A and E written together. The name is ash. Ash, we call it the ash because of the sound, right? Ash. It represents a vowel in modern English as in hat, right? And then this looks like a P, is called a thorn. It's called a thorn, right? Thorn, TH, because it represents the TH sound, thorn. You know already, thorn, TH, voice or voiceless, okay? Depending on the condition, the sound behind it or before it. The W, we don't use that, right? But it's written as this thing. It looks like a P, right? But it looks like the thorn, but it is not. So we call this the wind because the sound is the W form, right? In modern editions, it appears as a W because modern editors are worried that modern readers might be confused, so they use the W instead of the wind, right? So I'll show you what the wind and the thorn looks like in a minute. And this is a D with a cross. We call it the eth, right? Eth because there's a TH. So the capital version of it is D plus a bar or a stroke here in the middle. So that's the capitalized version. And what looks like number 3 here is called the yo. The yo because it's a special form of the letter G. So you might see this kind of cursive G and also this number 3 in Anglo-Saxon manuscripts. So this is why it's confusing. So this one is not a P. It looks like a P, right? This thing here. It looks like a P, but actually it's a W. It's a W sound. So it's the wind, right? So it can be confusing, right? It could be confusing. And what else? This is the thorn. So what's different between the wind and the thorn is that for the thorn, there's what you call an ascender. I should write this out for you. Ascender. Ascender. You know ascend, right? Ascend is to go up, right? There is an ascender for the thorn, but for the wind, there's no ascender, right? So let's say that this is a line, right, in the manuscript. So if you go above the line, like that, this is called the ascender. And if you go below the line, what you call? Descender, right? So you know descend and ascend, right? Ascend is to go up, descend is to come down, like that. So for the thorn, there is this ascender, but for the wind, there's no ascender. But still, they can be confusing, right, sometimes. And what else? So this is the ash here, and this is the F, and so on. Okay? Now, this is probably too dark to see in your version, right? So what I did was I made a clean copy for you. So can you pass this out and we'll go through this together. So now we'll go into consonant sounds in Old English. So we'll look at the handout here. Because it came out too dark on the slide. So this is another reproduction of the Old English alphabet, right? So you have the ash, the capitalized version, and the lowercase version on the top of the handout, right? Everyone has got a copy. I think there are some leftovers here. So on the top, you see two versions, right? The capitalized version, the uppercase version, and the lowercase version of each letter. And you see the wind here and the thorn here. So that's what we have already seen, right? So this is what looks like an R. You see an R, sometimes it looks like a P also, right? But it just doesn't come inside. And there's also a descender. S has 3 versions, which is pretty hard if you're not familiar with the text, Old English text. And then you have the wind here and the thorn here, right? Now, it's interesting that Anglo-Saxon scribes, you know, S-C-R-I-B-E, scribe, people who wrote for a living, right? So it's not because most people were illiterate, right? They could not read or write. They could speak, but they could not read or write. So you have this job, you have this profession called scribe. So usually monks, right? Because they have to study Latin in order to do religious writing and stuff like that. So you have professional scribes in Anglo-Saxon, but those people were few in number, right? So you have professional scribes, and when they did writing, it's interesting that they use abbreviations, right? Why do they use abbreviations? Because paper was expensive, and there was no paper at that time even, right? So you know what people wrote on? People wrote on animal skin, right? So they have to, you know how costly, you know how expensive it is to produce just a book or a manuscript, right? You have to kill the animal, the deer or the sheep, whatever, right? The cow, and you have to take the skin out. You have to process the skin, put it under the sun until it dries off, and then you have to do some other processes in order to remove the hair, and you have to put the rules, use the ruler in order for you to be able to write in a straightforward manner. So it's an expensive, it's costly in terms of money and in terms of effort. So what people do was to use abbreviations when they can, right, to save space, right? So each manuscript is interesting if you study Anglo-Saxon literature. Each manuscript is different. It's not, you cannot imagine the same thing that we have nowadays, because when we read the same, two different copies of the same book, you think they are the same, right? Because they are produced from the same publisher and so on. But here, everything was done by hand. So, and you may have two different scribes doing the same book, writing the same book, copying the same book, but two people have two different handwriting, right? Two different types of handwriting, and one person may misspell a word, and also there's no standard of spelling. So each manuscript is unique, right? And people may made a mistake and they try to scrape it out, erase it out. So it's unique. A manuscript is unique. So that's what is interesting about Anglo-Saxon literature. So they use abbreviations, right? So this abbreviation, it looks like number 7. It means and. You'll see that a lot in Beowulf when you read it in Old English. This means and because it looks like et in Latin, right? It looks like a T, just a T. Et means and in Latin, right? And this is the word that, like he said that, like that. He argued that word, that. So there's a thorn here and there's a cross, so it means that, right? So just write that symbol and it means that. And then this stroke above a word means M or N, right? If you study Spanish or French, it's the same thing, right? The nasal sound. So you don't have to write M or N as the last consonant sound, so you save one spot there. And then same thing here with the stroke above it instead of a vowel, and tone for tone, right? So there's no E at the end and so on. So whenever they can save space, they do that, okay? Now, we go into consonant sounds. So this is a table. So you know what the consonant table for modern English looks like, right? So this is Anglo-Saxon. This is Old English. So let's see. Things that we don't have nowadays are this area, right? C plus a wedge. Oh, we have that, sorry. J with a wedge, we have that, but oh, this one. Palatal, C plus a tail, okay? So that one we don't have nowadays. So this is the same table that you have on the slide, but the slide is too dark, right? So I reproduce that here. C with a tail. And X we don't have nowadays, right? In our table. What else? And then this kind of bow, it looks like a bow, like that, a bow, okay? Now, I'm not a phonetician, so I cannot reproduce this, or I cannot produce these sounds precisely. You can go and ask Jo Tae Hong Song name. But I will approximate my pronunciation. And also it's embarrassing because these are fricative, right? Fricative sounds. Fricative sounds, so you have to let the air out continuously in the palatal area. So how do you do it? Like that, okay? So that's why I say it's embarrassing. So like that. And then X is also the same thing because it's fricative, but it's in the velar region, meaning it's further inside. So like that. So it's embarrassing. I will do that one time only, okay? So this is the same. So you can practice that on your own or go and ask Jo Tae-hong Saosenim. So that's all I want to do. So like that, okay? So the two sounds are the same. They are allophone of each other, right? Of the same phoneme. One is a little bit more front than the other, right? So one is in the palatal, the other one is in the velar, but they are the same fricative sound. They are just different allophones of the same phoneme. So that's the consonant sounds, right? So we have three things that we don't have in modern English. I think that's pretty much it. So you can see that the overall picture is more or less the same as modern English, right? But what's difficult about this is that if you look on the back, the allophonic rules, you remember allophones, right? You have the same phoneme, but in reality, that phoneme is pronounced differently in different positions, in different environments, right? But they are allophones because they don't change the meaning, remember? So allophonic rules. So if you see the spelling of C, it will be a T hook, or T hook is C wedge, right? CH sound, same thing, right? It will be pronounced as CH, as in church, like that, before or after a front vowel. We studied this, right? We studied this before. You remember palatalization, right? Same thing. So C in English, in modern English also, C can be pronounced as a K, as an S, or I think C and S, K and S most of the time. K as in car, S as in city, right? City, like that. But C in Old English, could be either CH or K, right? K. But in Old English, there's no S, right? C was not pronounced as an S anywhere. Because S here, as in city, that's not an English word. It's a French word, city. So we borrow that from French in Middle English. So that's why in Old English, C was never pronounced an S because that's a French word. That's a French way of spelling things. But we have K. This is K. K is the original English sound. And K becomes CH or T hook or C with a wedge before or after a front vowel, right? So it's palatalized. So C with a wedge or T hook is a palatal sound, right? So you know why we have that T hook, right? Allophone, because of the environment, because of the next sound. This is the S, remember, and the thorn, right? The S and the thorn could be pronounced voice or voiceless, TH, voice TH, or voiceless TH, depending on whether or not it is close to a voice sound. This is assimilation. So if it's close to a voice sound, then it's voice. But if it's initially, finally, or next to voiceless consonant, it's voiceless, okay? So in other words, people wrote the F and the thorn interchangeably. They don't care. But in pronunciation, it will be voice when it's near, when it's close to a voice sound. In other positions, it will be voiceless. So this is a result of assimilation, right? So we study assimilation. So this is palatalization, right? Palatalization, assimilation. So these rules, these allophonic rules are pretty commonsensical, okay? And F, same thing. There's no V. Remember, in Old English, there's no V. We don't use the letter V, but there's the V sound, but we don't write it with a V letter. So F can be pronounced voiceless as a voiceless sound initially, finally, or next to a voiceless consonant. In other words, it's voiceless if the environment is voiceless. It will become a voice version, the V version, when it's close to a voice sound. Okay? So, again, assimilation. Let's see. I'll skip the G because this is more complicated. I'll go to H. H becomes a C with a tail after front vowel, front. You see the word front. X after back vowels, and H elsewhere. Okay? If you go back to look at the table here, you see here, right? C with a tail, X and H, they are 3 sounds in a row, right? They are allophones, right? So one is, as I said, more front than the others. So C with a tail is palatal, is fronter in the oral cavity, and X is velar, back. So C with a tail comes on when there's a front sound, front vowel. X comes on when there's a back vowel, like that. H elsewhere, like that. So pretty commonsensical, right? This is also assimilation in terms of place, right? Assimilation in terms of place. If you're close to something front, you have to move front forward. If you're close to something back, you have to move backward. So assimilation in terms of place. This is assimilation in terms of voicing, right? This is assimilation in terms of place. Place assimilation, you can call it like that. N, letter N, can be pronounced N with a tail, or just N, It's not a phoneme again, it's an allophone in Old English. Why? Because when you have a G, which is velar, K also velar. So there's an velar allophone, right? So this is again assimilation, but place assimilation. But in modern English, it's a phoneme, right? In Old English, it is an allophone, okay? Next sound is also commonsensical because we have an S letter, right? S spelling. Spelling of an S. S is an S, voiceless. When it's in the initial position, when it's final, when it's next to voiceless consonant, and it will become a Z, voice version, when it's close to a voice sound. So voicing assimilation again. Okay. I'll give you examples in a minute. So for example, the word rose. In English, in Old English, it would be everything will have to be pronounced. So you have 2 vowels here, right? So you have to pronounce everything rose, like that. So this S, is it just an S or a Z? You look at the environment. You see here, vowel sound is voice. You see here, vowel sound is voice. So S cannot remain voiceless, so it has to be voice. So it will be pronounced as rose, like that. Okay? So, but in other positions, like if it's like Ross, like that, so it would be an S because it's at the end, like that. So the F would work in the same way, the F and the thorn will work in the same way, okay? Voicing assimilation. Now we come to the G. We come back to the G. The G, the letter G, sometimes you see a number 3-like thing, right? Sometimes you'll see a cursive, more cursive shape. So when you see the G, it will be pronounced as a J, meaning Y, usually before or after a front vowel, right? Why is that? Because a Y sound, Y. Y is a palatal sound, right? Palatal sound is a glide, right? It's a glide, G-E-A-R. I know in modern English it's gear, but in Old English, because you see, this is a front vowel, right? E is a front vowel. So before a front vowel, it would be pronounced as a J, which is year, year. So this is the word year, okay? So this is pronounced like the word year, like that. Not gear, year, okay? Remember the J, the sound J, yeah, yeah, the sound that is represented by the symbol J, yeah. This sound is a glide, right? It's a semi-vowel, which has a relationship with the vowel E, right? So that's why it comes on when it's close to a front vowel, like that. And it's G elsewhere, and it's J after an N. So this one is kind of complicated. So you have to be careful of the environments a bit, okay? And then this one is just like a G, but the kind of affricate version of it is G, like that. I will not attempt that, but so these are allophonic rules, okay? So typically, as you can see, maybe 90%, 98% of these have to do with assimilation, right? Whether voicing assimilation or place assimilation, right? So it should be commonsensical if you understand the basics of English phonology, right? So that's consonants. Now we look at vowels, right? So vowels, what should I say about Old English vowels? You have this on the slide also. What's interesting about Old English vowels is that they come in pairs of long and short, and these are phonemes, not allophone. So you have ah and ah, so short and long. So the long ones in Old English manuscripts, you'll see a bar above it. You'll see a bar above it, right? So we call that a macron. Macron, M-A-C-R-O-N, macron. It means a long, it means that bar symbol, a macron. And scribes use that macron, okay? Scribes wrote a macron on long vowels in Old English because there is a meaning difference between long and short vowels. So they are phonemes, right? Because there's a meaning difference. Maybe not in Korean nowadays, right? You guys know, right? Perhaps that noon and, well, they're written the same, right? The eyes and snow, they used to be long and short, perhaps 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Or mal, the horse, the animal, and word or speaking, long and short. But so they used to be phonemic, meaning they used to be phonemes, indicating meaning distinction, right, between two words, or whether you mean a horse, an animal, or the word. Old English used to be like that, okay? So if you have a short vowel, it means one thing. If you have a long vowel, it means a different thing, like that. But nowadays, we totally throw away, right? We throw away that distinction, the long and short distinction. We don't have that anymore. Just like in Korean, it doesn't matter, right? The context will tell you like that. So they come in pairs, right? Like that. And you'll see the macron above the vowel. And in phonetic transcription, what do we do to indicate length? We put two dots, right? We put the colon after to show that it's a long sound, like that, right? In phonetic transcription, we use two dots, right? We use two dots. And pretty much they are like modern day, but the Y, again, it's embarrassing to do because you have to do the Y, the short Y or long Y. They are pretty much the same as E and E here, right? High front vowel, but you have to round your lips, right? So these are rounded high fronts. But E and E, they are unrounded high front, right? So typically when we do E, we spread, right? We spread our lips, E, like that. But when you do the Y, the sound of the Y symbol, E, like that, so like that. So it's not a good sight to look at, so E, like that, okay? So they have that pair also in Old English. And consonant sounds, we pretty much talk about it. You see a lot of double consonants, double like SS, TT, FF. It just means that you have to pronounce them longer, like 2 times, like that. So we have 2 dots. S, again, could be S or Z depending on the environment, right? So they are allophonic differentiation. What else? So the G could be one of these depending on the environment. It would be a Y sound when it's close to a Y, when it's close to a front sound, like that. And so these are like the letters and the sounds, right? And the allophonic variation that you can see. So can you work out the pronunciation of these sounds, right? So you see in A, this is A, right? So pretty much you can use your knowledge of modern day for English phonetics to read these Old English words, because there's a one-to-one correspondence between the spelling and the sound, unlike present-day English. So this is her, this is right? So, but there are some letters, right, that you have to be careful about because there are some allophonic variations. Remember, especially the letters that we looked at before, these letters, right? The C could be K or could be T hook, remember, depending on the environment. So with just perhaps 8 or 7 or 8 sounds. Otherwise, you can use your knowledge of English, modern day English phonetics to read, okay? But you just have to be careful when you see a C or the theta or the thorn, because sometimes it could be voice or voiceless depending on an environment. The G especially, because that's hard to know. And then H, perhaps in real pronunciation it doesn't matter if you do it just in the palatal area or in the velar area, right? Nobody is going to detect you. Nobody is a real native speaker of Old English in this class or in this world, right? So the S, you know, sometimes it's S or sometimes it's a Z depending on where it is, right? So apart from these, then everything is pretty much like English phonetic transcription. So in number 1, so the first 2 sounds you already know, right? Ha, ha. So you see double C. So double C, what should we do with double C? We know that C could be, you can see it from here or see it from here also, right? C could be pronounced either K or T hook, right? Depending on the environment, it would be a T hook before or after, when it's close to either before or after a front vowel, right? A front sound because of palatalization. Now, this one is a bit tricky because you might argue that A is a front vowel and A, the last vowel, is also a front vowel. So it should be pronounced as a T hook, right? It should be pronounced as a T hook, but this one is tricky, I admit, because when you have a double consonant, palatalization doesn't kick in, okay? So when you have a double consonant, palatalization doesn't matter. So you just pronounce it as a K. So it would be hack and then long K, right? Because you have double, hacke, like that. Hacke, not hatche, right? Hacke. In this case, because you have a double consonant. When you have a double consonant, it's longer, right? It's longer. So palatalization doesn't matter if you have a double consonant. Otherwise, palatalization would have kicked in, right? Otherwise, palatalization would have affected it. Right? But here, because it's a double consonant, so double consonant, which means the length the length goes up, right? So palatalization doesn't matter. You have to pronounce it longer and twice as long. So palatalization doesn't happen because speakers do not anticipate in advance. Okay. Number two. I'll just do maybe two, the first two. Now you see G, right? G. Other sounds are not problematic, right? Ha, ill. Other sounds are not problematic. Only certain consonant sounds like G, C, thorn, F. Those are problematic because there are allophones, right? Now the G sound, what should it be? Which allophone? The G sound. Let's see. There are four allophonic variations, right? The rules are here, right? G between vowels and voiced consonant. Y usually before or after a front vowel. So if it's around a front vowel, always pronounced as a Y, a glide, semi-vowel, right? Only after an N is J and then G elsewhere. At the end or initially like that, okay? So it would be the bow between voice things, between. So this one, what should it be then? Hair, that's one syllable. Gil is another syllable. So this one is before a front vowel. So it should be a J, right? So it would be hair, hail, like that, hail. Hail, hail. So it will become hail in perhaps within the next 200 or 300 years, like that. Hail, like that. Okay. Now, can you do C to N? C to N. So these, I think, perhaps the point of this exercise is that you have to know the allophonic variations of these underlined sounds, because things that they didn't underline for you are not problematic, right? P is just a P, right? G is problematic, so you have to be able to predict. Okay, so I will have this on the midterm also, so you should know how to do it. Okay. So I'll give you, and I'll walk around. I'll give you 7 or 8 minutes to work on this. Again, if you have a good basic understanding of allophonic variation, especially things that came out of assimilation, place of voicing, or palatalization, then you should do fine. Okay? Like number C, we have the first syllable pre, and then the second syllable ka, right? So the second syllable ka, C should be K or T hook. A is back vowel, right? Only when a front vowel is around, right? Do you have the T hook or C wedge? So this one, ka, should be K, right? Back vowel, K is a back sound, vila. So prika is prika. So pre, ka, like that, prika. So you can do D to N, D to N. Again, look at the environment, look at the different environments you have, and then you should be able to tell which variation. Number D, what sound? D, number D, what sound? Number D, what sound? Voice or voiceless? Voice, right? Smooth. Smooth tan. This is one word, right? One word. Smooth, and an. An here is like, what do you call it? Infinitive ending. Like mokta, like that. Ta, like that. An is infinitive. To do something. To go. An is to. So smooth, this is too smooth, right? So smethan. So this is a th voice. So I'll write it here. So sme, like that, long, right? And then smetan, like that. Smetan. Number E. I think we have the F underlined, right? So F is what? You could have a V or an F. So in this case, it's a F in front. Initially, in front, without thinking, F, right? F. Initially, F. So full, and then inside it would be futor. It would be voice, right? Because it's between two voice sound. Futor, futor, like that. Futor, futor, further, right? Number F, fus, which is ready. S, right? At the end, S. So fus, long u. So fus, long u, fus. Initially and at the end, initially and finally, without thinking, voiceless. Because again, people pronounce phonemes based on ease, right? Ease of articulation. So in the initial position, you don't have to voice it, right? People would tend to go in that direction. But number G, when you add a morpheme, a vowel, which makes it an adverb, ready to readily. So you add one important factor in there. So it will be fuze, like that. So fuze, like that. Fuze. Number H. Number H. So it's the word play, right? It's the word play, right? You have the translation here is the word play. So here you see a front vowel, right? So play, playa. So play, J. So playa, like that, playa. Because in this case, it's the word play, right? The end is the J sound, right? The morphemes will tell you. Number I, not number E, number I. So you would have F as a V or F. In this case, can you guess? Two, you see, two sounds, same morpheme, right? Same word. Within the same word, you have the word hawk, right? Hawk. So it's not like ha means one thing, fork means one, not like that, right? But this is the same word. So between two vowels, so you would have a voice sound. So it would be ha, walk, like that. Hawk. Number J. Number J, do you think that, so this will become the word thatch, right? Thatch. Chokajip, like a house with like thatch roof. Chokajip. So this one, the thorn, should be voice or voiceless. TH, voice or voiceless. Initially, finally, without thinking, voiceless. So it would be ta, and this is a K, right? Ta, ka. Because it's in the environment of a back sound. Ah is always back, right? Number K, nah, nothing. So this H should be which sound? This H should be which sound? It's not at the end, meaning it's not the final consonant, it's not the initial. If it's initial or end, initial, finally, you would have an H, right? But now it's somewhere else, some other places, right? So you either have a C with a tail or X Remember, C with the tail X depending on whether it should be a little bit more front or a little bit back, right? So look at the environment. R is back or front? Back. So you have to have something back, right? Backward. So it should be an X, right? It should be an X. So, so please try to do that at home. Nacht, like that. Nacht. Because it has to be fricative, so you have to release the air in the velar area. Nacht, like that. Number L. Number L. H there is not initial, not the first sound or not the last sound possible, so it cannot be an H. Now you have two options, either X or C with the tail, right? Now look at the position. E, short E, is front or back? Front, so you have to have more front, which is C with a tail. So, C. So this is gonna be, the last sound is gonna be voiceless, right? Because it's at the end. Sicht, like that. Very difficult, this one. Number M. You have a front sound at the end, right? And also in the front, A and A, both front vowels. So C has to be pronounced as, has to be palatalized, right? So it would be la che. So la, long, and then T hook, or you can use C with a wedge. La che, like that, la che. Not la ke, but la che, right? Because it has to be palatalized due to the environment. Number N, Berk. In the final position, this one is special. You have, and also after R, you have the bow tie. Berk, like that. I'm sorry, not the G, the bow tie. At the end too, right? No? Oh, 진짜요? Where is my rule? 그래. Berk. Okay, I made a mistake, sorry. So, now at least you have some idea as to how to pronounce Old English words. Next time, we'll come back and go through you guys each individually. I'll have you read each line. So this is on 184, so prepare. But most of this you'll be able to do, like Summan, Ferde, Fam, Jerusalem to Jericho, like that. Most of these you can do. But there are some, like F here should be V or F, like that, right? Perephodon, this has to be V because I is a vowel, O is a vowel, so F has to be V, like that. So we have to be careful about the allophones, right? But other than that, like hine, for leton, F is an F in front, like that, okay? So most of these you can do like pretty naturally, but there are some like C here, ku, this is K, right? Like K, because it's before a back vowel, like that, and so on, okay? So next time, I'll pick you one by one to read each line, okay? Next Monday, I think. So today, this is where we call it a quit. So see you guys back on Monday.